Good morning. It started on a drive. Two friends barreling down Highway 17 in California, en route from Santa Cruz to Silicon Valley. They were the perfect pair to start a business. One with lots of ideas, the other, lots of money. They were looking for the next big thing. After flirting with many possibilities, they landed on an idea not for the faint of heart. It would entail defining a new category, disrupting established business models, and challenging a multi-billion-dollar Goliath of a competitor. Within their first 2 years, the friends would generate $35 million in annual revenues with about 100 employees. Still, their losses were severe, more than $50 million annually. Resource drained, they needed a lifeline. So they turned to that behemoth incumbent, their largest competitor, and offered them the opportunity to buy them out for $50 million. Their request? Flatly denied. They grinded through, and within 2 more years they would go public, raising $82.5 million with their IPO. Today, Netflix is valued at about $100 billion. It's a household staple for over 200 million subscribers around the world. It took out Blockbuster, which filed for bankruptcy just 10 years after it denied that bargain of a buyout offer. And it all started on a drive between two friends, imagining what could be. Every big business like Netflix once started as a small one. That fateful year that Netflix offered Blockbuster a buyout, they were, by general definition, a small business, both in number of employees and annual revenues. They were below the category cap per the Small Business Administration. Now, process that for just a second, right? Just process that. At Netflix's most pivotal moment in time, they were, by general definition, a small business. Now, to be clear on how I am defining small businesses today, I'm including those firms with 500 employees or less. These companies represent over 99% of paid employee firms, employ nearly half of the private workforce, are responsible for more than 60% of net new jobs created, and account for 44% of GDP. In other words, there's nothing small about small businesses where our economy is concerned. Now, COVID tested the mettle of these companies unlike anything we've ever seen, but it also left one of many surprising statistics in its wake. You know what it was? COVID broke a decades-long slump in US entrepreneurship. In 2020, Americans filed paperwork to start more than 4.3 million businesses, a 24% increase over 2019, and by far the highest number reported on record ever. Virtually every small business born in this pandemic is digital first, if not digital only, a striking departure from those that came before them, not unlike the millennial generation being the first of its kind among consumers. But COVID didn't just give birth to new businesses. It forced existing businesses to adapt or collapse. So whether new or reinvented, small businesses, ladies and gentlemen, are having a bit of a moment. Over the next 15 minutes, I want to paint a picture of how small businesses have changed post-COVID and what those changes mean for financial providers. Perhaps more importantly, I'll offer thoughts on how your institution can serve these customers profitably and at scale. Now, throughout our talk, I will challenge you to remember that small businesses are not exclusively sole proprietorships, startups, or gig workers. They include companies that employ hundreds, companies that have been around for decades, companies that are perhaps on the precipice of the next big thing themselves. We'll start our drive this morning by looking at how small businesses have changed through the pandemic. Alkami surveyed 400 US small businesses in February of this year. While COVID has not been easy on these firms, many adapted to their new normal, modernizing their operations and infrastructure. Nearly 90% have changed since COVID, with 40% of them saying those changes, they're here to stay. Many reinvented their go-to-market engine, doubling down on e-commerce or online marketplaces, with at least 20% more small businesses generating revenue from these channels than before the pandemic. Indeed, These online partners largely answered the call for small businesses over the past couple of years, with more than 40% of firms agreeing that brands like PayPal, Amazon, Square, Shopify, they've been extremely helpful through the pandemic. That's a statistical tie with those saying the same about banks and credit unions. Pre-COVID, we would likely have agreed that a small business needs a good accountant, a good lawyer, and a good banker. It seems we can now add a good e-commerce partner to that list. Now, before we can help these companies, we must capture them. So the first leg of our journey entails acquiring the small business relationship. And on this point, our research is fairly clear. The deposit account is the on-ramp to a broader business relationship. Over half of small businesses still define their primary financial institution or PFI relationship based on where they deposit checks and cash. Yet this on-ramp is congested and under perpetual construction for FIs relying on offline manual processes for business account opening. According to Javelin, half of the top 24 banks in the country do not offer digital account opening for businesses, a situation that only worsens over the long tail of regional and community FIs in the US. The reason? Come on, this is a non-trivial problem for you to solve, right? As an FI, you need a way to gather and authenticate business documents. You need to verify the identity of the entity and the business owners. By the way, you need to secure signatures from those business owners, and you need to obtain initial account funding. Piece of cake, come on. These highly manual processes that turn the gears of business account opening overwhelm your FI in cost and small businesses in time. To solve these problems, we are optimizing our Alkami Ignite business digital account opening product for every stage of the journey. For checkout, we'll rely on non-documentary means of verification. For further checks and validation, we'll look at third-party data source lookups. For decisioning, our rules-based engine will let you define what additional tasks or documents must be completed before approval, allowing you to balance your FI's risk posture with its growth appetite. In the end, your FI will reduce the cost of acquiring small businesses, and small businesses will avoid time-intensive manual processes. Now that we're on the highway with the deposit account, it's time to set our coordinates for an ongoing relationship. As we contemplate the future of digital banking here at CoLab, small businesses, particularly post-COVID, are the new tweens in the market. Like consumers, they prefer frictionless, intuitive experiences, but like big businesses, they demand security and fraud controls. Our research shows that the top two most important criteria in a small business's ideal bank or credit union are the latest fraud protection services and a robust online banking platform. These two factors topped a list of 12 in our research, including customer service, convenient branch and ATM locations, and the FI being a good community citizen, just to name a few. Let's put a face on these tweens.
We provide audiovisual and technology for meetings and conferences around the country.
We provide science and engineering studies for federal agencies.
We're a custom commercial hardwood floor company.
Asionics is a company which helps companies get their products out the door.
Because of COVID, we pivoted our marketing strategy, not just from installing wood floors, but to selling our materials to a nationwide market that expands our capacity.
Going into the bank takes an hour or an hour and a half, either for me or for our finance people to go and do, let's say, for example, getting a banker's check or getting doing an international fund transfer. Now doing that online, I can do that 24/7. I need not be restricted to 9 to 5 or whatever the banking hours are.
If the terms were right and all of the facets of the loan were right, I would consider using a non-traditional means of a loan. It might even come from someone as familiar as a company delivering packages, possibly. It doesn't necessarily have to be our traditional bank. It just really depends on the terms and what we were enticed by.
My dream for the business is that we set up a corporation where people come in, they grow, they learn the industry, they believe in our values, and eventually, possibly the employees can buy out the company.
At Alkami, we've built a reputation on having a world-class retail user experience. But more recently, we've taken that mindset and approach and are applying it to the business user experience. We allow these companies to intuitively add sub-users to the business such that they aren't tempted to simply share credentials that expose their company to cyber risk. We offer seamless integrations with dozens of critical systems, so small businesses aren't wasting valuable time with disjointed or offline workflows. We provide users with the ability to do their own custom reporting because we know small businesses are not one size fits all. And we do all this and more with painstaking care to optimize the user experience at every turn. When it comes to fraud, small businesses are willing to pay for protection. They need strong positive pay solutions and biometric technology that authenticates users with out-of-band verification. Empowering these companies to permit or stop suspicious alerts through real-time fraud alerts differentiates you as their PFI, given these capabilities are not generally available from tech players. Not only that, powerful fraud prevention minimizes the risk of financial loss, helps your FI meet compliance objectives, and shifts responsibility to the customer for payment decisions, thereby reducing your liability. These reasons and more compelled Alkami to acquire ACH Alert, which moves fraud monitoring from your back room into the hands of paying customers, transforming what used to be a cost center into a new source of non-interest income. The final leg of our journey entails expanding the relationship through lending. Our research shows that more than 80% of small businesses prefer their PFI for loans, which is another reason it's so important to gain PFI status through that deposit account. But here's the deal. Larger banks fully approve less than 50% of small business loan applicants. Post-COVID, fewer loan applicants are receiving all the financing they seek. Now, lest we believe this decline in financing was due to a glut of credit-unworthy businesses seeking funding, oh no, the Small Business Credit Survey finds the opposite to be true. In fact, firms with good credit were more adversely affected than their bad credit counterparts. So this market is increasingly up for grabs. While they may have a preference for doing lending with their PFI, if that PFI is a larger bank, the chances their loan won't be fully financed if approved at all. That leaves the door open to others, mainly online lenders, including those oh-so-helpful e-commerce partners I just mentioned to you, and regional and community financial institutions to pick up the business. So how do we do it? Let's take another page from Netflix, which presciently stated in 2013 that their goal was to, quote, become HBO faster than HBO can become us, end quote. You have to become a fintech faster than a fintech can become you. A couple of years ago, On Deck reported their average customer had a credit score of 709, $679,000 in revenue, and over 9 years in business. That same year, the online lender funded over $2.5 billion in loans with a portfolio yield of 36%. That's not bad, right? Many would want a cut of that market. The question is how to compete for it profitably and at scale. This is a supply and demand issue at its core. We must address the unit economics of supplying a $100,000 loan, given close to 60% of small businesses seek financing under this threshold. But it costs as much to underwrite a $100,000 loan as it does a $1 million loan, creating a disconnect between market demand for smaller loans and FI incentives to approve bigger ones. While FIs are deterred by unit economics, small businesses are completely overwhelmed by the process. Some estimate that obtaining funding from a traditional FI costs a small business 25 hours in research and paperwork. Plaid reports that half of small businesses report it's difficult or takes too long to obtain financing. Perhaps that's part of the reason why more than half the non-applicant market needs financing, but just forgoes applying at all. But what if those manual back office underwriting processes could be digitized? One industry consultant, FIC, estimates that doing so could reduce the cost of providing the loan by up to 90%, making these loans not only profitable, but highly scalable. Online loan origination and decisioning can address the supply-demand problem that has been at the heart of small business lending for years. And as we've designed Alkami Ignite for the business account opening process, those same non-documentary and third-party means of validation can apply to, you know it, the loan origination process. Our Alkami Ignite portfolio is built to offer a seamless, frictionless user experience and real-time decisioning on the same cloud platform, allowing you to profitably compete for small businesses at scale and address both sides of the balance sheet. Joseph Schumpeter was a fan of the entrepreneur back in the days when capitalism was seemingly bankrupt. It was Schumpeter in the 1930s who argued that entrepreneurs are the ones who drive economies, setting business cycles in motion, and he eventually coined his idea, creative destruction. Economists have identified patterns of creative destruction every 50 to 100 years. For instance, in the early 19th century, we had the rise of textiles, iron, coal, steam engines to propel the economy. By the mid-19th century, we had steel production and railroads. The early 20th century, we were galvanized by automobiles and electric power, and we saw the introduction of the laser, the microprocessor, fiber optics, and satellite technologies emerge in the latter half of the century. Now, it's difficult to notice the forces of creative destruction as they're occurring, but it would appear that the convergence of cloud, mobility, APIs, and digitization is creating the next wave of opportunity for us in our industry. Alkami has benefited from the tailwinds of these forces, and we're committed to using the same to advance your competitive position. That translates into Alkami Ignite, which allows you to seize the small business relationship profitably and at scale. It's evident in our ACH Alert family of solutions, which transforms fraud management from a cost center into a new source of non-interest income. It lives in our business digital banking experience, which addresses the most limited resource most businesses have, time, to streamline financial tasks and allow these companies to focus on their core competency while you focus on yours. Small businesses cover the spectrum, from the startup to the tenured, from the sole proprietor to the company that employs hundreds. But in all cases, they represent the hopes and the dreams of the human beings behind them. They are our neighbors, the parents of our kids' friends, the people we rely on each day, and they deserve banking suited to them. As I hope I've convinced you that there's nothing small about small businesses, there's nothing small in the features, functionality that Alkami provides across our business portfolio. Rest assured, we're going to help you compete against the fintechs and the mega banks, but also know that our portfolio is sophisticated enough to handle the more demanding requirements of commercial and large enterprise accounts, because after all, many small businesses, they do grow up, don't they? It started on a whim. Two friends driving themselves crazy, cooped up as COVID-19 showed no signs of relief. Craving authentic connections with others, these two Yale students started a sign-up sheet with a Facebook group with a half-joking headline, quote, "Scared of social isolation? Fear not, Zoom will keep us together." The forum went viral, quickly spreading from student to student and campus to campus, with people filling it out with their college, their year, their preferred gender, and whether they were seeking a friend or a date. In 2 days, close to 2,400 students had signed up, representing 170 colleges and universities across the US. Today, OKZoomer has made more than 345,000 matches across 18,000 users and has earned creators Ileana Valdez and Patricia Gorska acclaim in Rolling Stone and other national media. Unlike Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph of Netflix, Valdez and Gorska weren't looking for the next big thing. They just wanted to do their part to help the socially isolated. Whatever their origin story, to disrupt an established category, support those in need, or something else entirely, for Valdez and Gorska and the more than 32 million entrepreneurs in this country, their business is not simply a profession. It's a passion. It's a livelihood. And for the Netflixes and other Goliaths we admire today, it's easy to forget they were once small themselves. Alkami is committed to delivering business solutions that offer your institution competitive advantage and profitable scale in serving those bold enough to keep the gears of our economy moving and shape our collective tomorrow so that the next dream, if not the next big thing, can be realized. Thank you.